try to dive into the topic and all that. So my first question, modern day Napoleon Hill.
Hmm.
Do you remember the thought when you were thinking of like, oh, I want to be like him? Were there such a thought, or was it unconsciously somehow came into being?
You know, it's kind of funny actually, because okay, so I have to be authentic when I answer this. When I read the book Think and Grow Rich the very first time, I actually was a little bit jealous of Napoleon Hill. That's really what happened. And yeah, the reality is someone had told me this saying, which you probably heard, that we become like the 5 people that we spend the most time with. And the reality is at the time I wasn't spending time with people that were stretching me or taking me to a higher level. And so when I read that he had gone out and interviewed people like Thomas Edison and Henry Ford and the Rockefellers and the Wrigleys, I kind of was like, I wish I could have friends like that. Like that would really make a difference in my life. And so that's kind of what my beginning was. Like, again, I loved the book. It was an excellent book. But as soon as I started realizing that, you know, the people I was spending time with were what made the difference, that's kind of what led me to really the mission that I started of how could I interview some of these amazing people in the world? And that was really the beginning of it. Yeah. The jealousy.
Yeah, interesting. Because I thought maybe you had just like, oh, I want to be like him, you know?
You know what? I had actually never heard of him before. Growing up, I had never heard of any personal development before at all. In fact, this is kind of, again, being totally vulnerable. When I was about 16, there was a girl that I was dating. And for my birthday, like she gave me a really nice gift. And then he gave me a book. And the book, the title of it was Goals, Get Some Direction in Your Life. And he kind of gave me this nasty look as he gave it to me. And he was a former school teacher. But when he gave it to me, I was like, yeah, thanks. And I just kind of put it on the shelf, and that was the end of it. And honestly, I never really got into it. And so I didn't understand the idea of goal setting or achievement or any of these things. And then later, when I was probably about 19 is when I got the book Think and Grow Rich. And that's when I started really seriously thinking about it, because to be quite frank, up until then, I really didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And kind of for me, the examples around me mostly were people who were, you know, kind of stuck in the rat race, people that were working traditional jobs. There was no real entrepreneur mindset around the people I was with. My father worked in construction, for example, and my mom, she babysat kids in the home as well. And I didn't do very good in school, right? Because I wasn't there to learn for the right reasons. I didn't know what I wanted to be. And so, you know, when I got Think and Grow Rich, all of a sudden, you know, just the title Think, okay, I can kind of do that. And Grow Rich, I want to do that. And so I thought at first it was kind of the easy path, and that's what made me sort of pursue it. And then obviously, you know, I kind of got hooked on this idea of learning first with the achievers in real life. But then, to be quite frank, the way that it kind of unfolded is when I'd go and I would meet someone, I would want to then read a little bit about them before meeting them. So at least I didn't sound like a fool. And the more I read about some of these people, the more I kind of got drawn into this idea of reading. And now you can see this is one of the libraries that I have at the house, but also at my office, I've got even more books. And the crazy thing is I know this sounds really, really strange, but and I've also got books here that you can't see, but I've read them all. And generally right now, I'm reading, I don't know, between maybe 10 and 20 books per month. In fact, if I just even pull any one of these randomly from here, you'll see that like the way that I read, like I highlight and I mark and everything. So I could literally pull any of these books here, you know, I could just randomly, like here again, here's another one, and I can just literally flip open to any page and there's stuff that's there. And you can always kind of tell that it's one of my books by the way that it's highlighted or that it's written in, that there's you know, this one here, maybe less notes, but you can just kind of see everything's, you know, what's important is underlined in it. So everything that I have in my complete library, it's, you know, there's writing and all kinds of stuff in the column. So I believe that that's a really important point for success. If you ever want to succeed at anything, is that you really need to become very thirsty to learn it. You've heard that idea of Socrates taking a student, sticking his head underwater. And as much as you want to learn how to breathe, you're going to want to, you know, I agree with that. But I think it's maybe more than that. Until you really find something that gets you excited, it's not that interesting to learn, right? But
Yeah.
when you see how it fits in your life, it becomes important.
So what got you excited about interviewing those other people? Were this the 5 people rule that you wanted in your life?
It kind of started that way, but kind of what was interesting is, so I started really actually with a fellow that I knew who was a multimillionaire, right? And you've heard this idea, take a millionaire to lunch, and I'd heard that too. So I said, I don't just want to take this guy to lunch. I want to meet with him as often as he will meet with me.
Yeah.
And because he was an older
And
gentleman, and
what would you do
retired.
together? Like, did you ask him specific questions, or
Oh
was
yeah,
yeah?
yeah. In fact, because he was retired, and he didn't have a lot going on anymore for work and stuff, I almost spent at times almost every single day with him. I was doing something with him, and we'd go out for lunch. Sometimes, we'd go out to the park or something and on a walk, and other times I would just bring ideas for him. And so anyways, at the beginning, I was meeting with him, and for about 6 months, I would just ask him questions, things that, again, I started reading a little bit. And so how do you get to success? What were your biggest challenges? What's your definition of success? For a guy like me, what's the biggest thing that I could do right now that would change my life and take it in a proper trajectory? If I was going to start a business, what would you start it in and why? All these things. Anyway, so at the end of these 6 months, he says, you know what, you've asked me a lot of great questions, but there's one question you haven't asked me that's going to change everything.
Yeah,
So
I remember
what's
that.
that?
Yeah,
says,
I listened to the podcast you said. Yeah.
Yeah. And basically the question that I asked him, I said, well, what's that question? He goes, well, you haven't asked me who else I know that you should talk to. And so I started asking that question every single time, right? You hear salespeople also say they ask for referrals. Well, that's kind of what I would do. And then over time, I started getting introduced to bigger and bigger and bigger business leaders. And I eventually got to like one of the founders of FedEx, the former VP of marketing for all of KFC and American Airlines, the founder of Reebok, the founders of Ted Baker, the founder of UGG Boots, the founder of Uber, the founders of, you name it, every company, just every company that you can possibly think of. And I still ask that question today. So
how did you
that's
change
kind of what
innerly? Like, what changed in you? Were those first meetings, okay, first person was your friend, but then those were the next people were you didn't know them, and they were kind of high rank and like very important. How did you change innerly? Did you have that fear? I'm like, oh my gosh, am I gonna screw it up?
Of course, yeah.
Thought,
in fact, I still have that fear sometimes. But in reality, I guess the thing is, even meeting with that first friend, one of the things that a mentor always does is a mentor helps you see things about you that you don't recognize, right? And so he began to help me to see myself in a different way. And so I began to approach all of these business leaders. But what I would now do is I would start, because some of them I knew I might only get a one-time visit, right? Like it's like lightning strikes. The first time I met Oprah Winfrey, for example, I had no idea if I'd ever meet her again, right? Or I know some people don't like him, but even Donald Trump, I had no idea if I would meet him again. And so I would prepare the questions and everything that I'd want to learn from them. So I was very calculated and specific. In fact, here's something that your listeners might want to write down. When you have a goal that is specific and clear becomes attainable and near. So we need to get very specific and clear with what we're looking to find out or to do or to accomplish. And so I made those specific goals. Now, the interesting thing is as I was doing these interviews, many of these people that I met with, because I was clear, and I think because I was ambitious, and because every mentor likes to have someone that they can teach that they know will do something, right?
Yeah, sure.
And because they knew that I was on the path to doing something, valuable, many of them became close friends. Many of them also said, I hear you're interviewing all these top achievers. Come back and report what you learned, because I'm interested to hear what somebody else said, right? Yeah. So many of them became close friends. And some of them are even still really close friends today. In fact, yesterday by email, I was on with Chris Brown, the co-founder of Ted Baker. I was on with Joe Foster, the founder of Reebok. I was on with Brian Smith, the founder of UGG Boots, and several others. And so I still have them as a regular part of my life. But here's something interesting to think about. You hear that your network equals your net worth, right? Well, there's two things. Before you have a network, you have to have self-worth, right? Because your network will be a reflection of your self-worth. If you think that you're not worth much and low level and all this, you won't attract high level people. So you've got to believe in yourself. One of my mentors said it this way: you'll never do $1 million deal at a $10 breakfast. And so if you believe you're worthy here, you'll never get to here. So self-worth precedes network, but network also, before it precedes net worth, is a safety net, meaning that you need to learn how to solve bigger problems, and you need to have the support of others before you can build high net worth. Net worth is always a team sport. So is building business. And the entrepreneurs that we work with, we teach them how to build good teams, because a team always precedes any kind of victory. And so when I learned that process and kind of learned how to bring these people into my life as a safety net to help me solve bigger problems, suddenly I found that my life literally changed. I started, actually, here's something interesting to think about. I had somebody ask me the other day, they say, we're always told to think big, right? Yet when we think big, the next thing that we do is we kind of minimize it to fit it inside a box, right? Like we have these big thoughts, and then we say this idea, well, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. And then we don't do much with it because it's such a big thought and we get frightened and freaked out. Well, the reality is it's not up to you. If it's meant to be, it begins with me. But if it's meant to be, it now has to go into the world, and you need support to make it happen. And so that lie of everything's up to you is untrue, right? Just same thing with this idea of perfectionism. Perfection does not exist. All top achievers are improvisers. They're not perfectionists. They learn how to pivot. They learn how to flow, and things very rarely turn out exactly as you'd hoped, right?